Father's funeral lasted for 7 days, and Ethan did not attend. In his safe, I discovered a locked box. The password was his first love's birthday. Inside were preserved every train ticket from their romance to breakup, for each meeting. The most recent one coincided exactly with the time I was arranging my father's funeral. Clara, is it fun to pry into others' privacy? Ethan, who had just gotten off the high-speed train, asked me while carrying his luggage and leaning against the study door. I turned to look at the man outside the door, without arguing or making a fuss. I simply said calmly, "Let's break up." Ethan was stunned, and in front of me, he lit the box of tickets on fire, his expression indifferent and emotionless. "Satisfied now?" he asked me. "Still breaking up?" I nodded seriously, yes. After seeing off the last relative who came for the funeral, I ran into Ethan at the door. Unlike yesterday's disheveled appearance, he had showered, shaved, and was clean and tidy. But I still noticed he hadn't slept all night, with his fingertips yellowed from cigarette smoke. In our 3 years together, this was the first time I saw him lose control. I thought about yesterday, and indeed it was my fault. I shouldn't have kept those tickets. He rubbed his forehead, somewhat impatient. "How about this? I have time off the day after tomorrow. I'll accompany you to watch a movie in the evening." Avengers 3 was the one he watched in H Province with his first love Mandy. When my father passed away and I called Ethan to come back, he was at the cinema. In the corridor of Beijing City Hospital, I sat on the steps of the fire escape, my voice hoarse from crying. "Ethan, my dad is gone, I'm handling the funeral alone, can you come help me?" In H City Cinema, Ethan leaned on the sofa in the private screening room, busy handing popcorn to Mandy. "What do you mean gone?" "I'm watching a movie, can't hear clearly." "Whatever it is, wait until I get back, don't bother me these days." "Mandy, want some cola?" In just 2 seconds, his tone was completely different. I held the phone, listening to their whispers for a long time, until the nurse found me with my father's death certificate, and I slowly came back to reality. In 3 years together, I never expected this. Facing Ethan's infidelity happened in the 28th minute after my dad's death. The deeply memorable pain surged again, my gaze dazed for a moment, and I didn't respond promptly. Ethan's brows furrowed tighter, with a hint of easily detectable irritation. "Still not enough? That necklace you liked, I'll buy it for you. Is that okay now?" I subconsciously nodded, then shook my head. Nodding because I did like that necklace, same brand as the wedding gift my dad gave my mom. Shaking my head because that necklace was the engagement gift Ethan promised me. June 8th, it's been half a year. "No need," I calmly refused, and reminded him along the way, "Ethan, we broke up. Just yesterday, did you forget?" I kindly reminded him, but Ethan's face suddenly darkened. "Clara, I already burned the tickets in front of you, and promised to compensate you, what more do you want? Do you want to make a scene in front of your dad, let him judge who's right? Don't forget, I saved your mom, you and your dad owe me a favor forever." I pursed my lips, he was right. Ethan and I met because of a friend's gathering. At that time, he and Mandy had broken up due to long distance, and he was drowning his sorrows at the party. I happened to be looking for someone and handed him a tissue. At that time, I didn't even know his name, just remembered that unhappy man, whose eyes suddenly lit up the moment he saw me. 3 months later, we were together. No flowers, no confession. Only him carrying my mom on his back through 8 streets when she had a myocardial infarction and was in critical condition. So even later, when I discovered Ethan still had an unforgettable shadow in his heart. Discovering his overt and covert longing for Mandy. Realizing that perhaps he really didn't love me that much. But I still couldn't let go, because Ethan always had a get-out-of-jail-free card with me. Until this time my dad passed away, and the funeral lasted a full 7 days. Ethan didn't come. I looked at those couple photos Mandy posted on Moments, and Ethan's heartfelt comment below, "With me, you always have privileges." Only then did I suddenly realize that the get-out-of-jail-free card also has an expiration date. 3 years, no more, no less. Just expired. Stung by the calm in my eyes, Ethan clenched his fists. Do you believe I'll go to the hospital right now to find your dad? See if he'll agree to our breakup. After saying that, he turned and left, not even noticing the white flower on my chest. I remained silent too. For the first time, I didn't chase after him like before, begging him not to be angry, admitting I was wrong, and saying we were still good. Ethan walked to the car, opened the driver's door, and looked back at me. I'm going to the hospital, aren't you stopping me? I was stunned for 2 seconds, then smiled and said, can't stop you, and don't want to anymore. Anyway, my dad is already gone. My mom left long ago. After this funeral, I have no family left. The car door was slammed shut forcefully, and the black Audi quickly merged into traffic. I stood at the door for a full 10 minutes until my feet went numb, then slowly came back to myself and turned to walk back to the morning hall. Ethan, if you had just taken one more step toward me, you would have discovered. The home behind me has turned into a morning hall. My dad is gone, and I'm tired too. This breakup is serious. After cleaning the last bit of paper flowers in the yard, I took a taxi to the cake shop in the city center. Actually, today is my birthday. When I was little, every birthday, my parents would order a cake for me in advance. After dinner, the family would sit at the table, clapping and singing happy birthday. Later, Mom passed away due to illness. The one buying the cake became Dad. Now he's gone too, leaving me to celebrate my birthday alone. Getting the cake, I found a place in the store to sit down right away. Still the same style as before, the cream very sweet, each bite mixed with the sourness of tears. Halfway through eating, I noticed Ethan had sent me a message half an hour ago. Uncle transferred hospitals? Why is the ward empty? He sent a photo of a nurse making the bed, thinking I was still deliberately throwing a tantrum. To prevent me from complaining to Uncle, you actually had him transferred. Clara, you're something. I silently replied to him. Not deliberately throwing a tantrum. My dad he. The last message wasn't sent yet when a familiar figure pushed the door open, his left hand tightly holding another woman's. Mandy? She actually came back. And with Ethan, holding hands. Ethan held her with one hand, messaging with the other. Clara, speak. My patience is limited, if you keep acting up, I really won't care about you anymore. He angrily sent that message, then turned and skillfully said to the clerk, a piece of blueberry mousse, no vanilla. Blueberries are Mandy's favorite fruit. Her preferences, in the 3 years with Ethan, he casually mentioned countless times in my ear. Mandy doesn't like sour things, doesn't eat strawberries or raspberries, only likes blueberries. Mandy can't cook, hates the smell of oil smoke on her, but loves chicken soup, especially with coincided and red dates. Mandy. When I first heard these, I was so sad I could die. Puffing my cheeks, I asked Ethan, what about me? Do you remember what I like and don't like to eat? The man was stunned, furrowed his brows thinking for a long time, and finally just honestly shook his head. Don't know, too lazy to remember. Don't know, too lazy to remember. These 6 words once branded a deep, bone-visible scar on my heart. But now. I withdrew my gaze, stuffed a bite of cake into my mouth. It's all in the past. I won't care anymore. The only thing I think now is, happy birthday to myself. After eating the last bite of cake, I glanced at the two with their backs to the door, wanting to leave silently like a stranger. Who knew, as soon as my hand touched the handle, I was forcefully pulled back. Clara. It seemed in an instant, heavy rain started outside. Ethan let go of Mandy's hand and stood in front of me. You followed me? He slightly raised his eyebrow, somewhat smug. I thought you had so much backbone, so tough in person, but secretly following me. Oh, introduce, this is Mandy, my first love. The words first love in Ethan's mouth were like wrapped in honey. He stared at me with a half smile, waiting for my reaction. I knew what he was expecting. Before, not to mention Mandy standing in front of me, even an occasional vague hint in moments would make my eyes red immediately. Afraid he'd rekindle old flames, afraid he wouldn't want me. In 3 years together, I always lowered myself to the dust. But as I said, that was before. From that unclear phone call at the hospital. From me handling my father's funeral alone, running between hospital and funeral home. From relatives, friends, even the neighborhood gatekeeper uncle, all making time to attend the funeral, offer incense to father, while Ethan still didn't show up. Ethan and I were left with only the past, no future. I sighed, met Mandy's eyes mixed with surprise and flaunting, politely nodded. Hello, nice to meet you, goodbye. 10 words, I quickly ended the conversation. Breaking free from Ethan's hand, I walked into the rain, ignoring the reactions behind. Ethan didn't chase, just my pocket phone vibrated twice. Opening it, it was the man's usual simple and direct question, Clara, are you serious? Did you forget I carried your mom to the hospital back then? Rainwater hit my pupils, misty, even I couldn't tell if it was tears. I hid under the eaves, fingers lightly tapping the keyboard. Didn't forget, serious. That evening, at home sorting father's belongings. The phone rang 6 times in an hour, all from mutual friends of Ethan and me. Clara, do you know Mandy is back? Ethan, I don't know what's wrong with him, brought her to our gathering. They sent a photo of Mandy leaning in Ethan's arms, under dim lights, full of ambiguity. Ethan is really over the line this time, when are you coming over? I calmly shook my head. Repeating the words I've said countless times. Saw it, but not coming. Compared to Ethan, I have many more important things to do. After packing the last belonging, it was already midnight. I took out the trash. Ethan's car was parked at the door. After hesitating a moment, I knocked on the window. Something? Through the window, I saw the man silently extinguish his cigarette, with indescribable irritation. Jack and them looked for you. I nodded. You know I was just accompanying Mandy? You're not angry? He looked at me, unprecedentedly, somewhat confused. I countered, why be angry? Haven't we already broken up? I don't understand why such a simple thing always needs my reminder. The car door banged open, my wrist hurt, my world flipped, Ethan pressed me against the car. Why? He scrutinized my face, as if trying to find a trace of insincerity. Mandy and I ended long ago, I burned the tickets too, if you're unhappy, I won't go find her anymore. What else are you dissatisfied with? I blinked, my gaze vacant. Yeah, what else am I unsatisfied with? Probably, when father passed, I called Ethan first thing, but he was accompanying Mandy watching a movie. Or perhaps, me alone at the crematorium signing father's body cremation agreement, twitching from grief, while Ethan's moments updated with H Province's ice and snow world. A full 7 days of funeral, relatives knew, colleagues knew, mutual friends with Ethan knew. Only he didn't. I don't know why, I only know I can't get over this hurdle. Closing my eyes, I met Ethan's eyes mixed with anger and panic, softly said, stop messing around. In 3 years with Ethan, it was always him reminding me to behave, not to mess around. Unexpectedly today, positions reversed. Ethan was stunned too. Completely I'd have this attitude. For the first time I saw helplessness in his eyes. After who knows how long, Ethan let go of me, took out a 6-inch birthday cake from the passenger seat. He took out candles, lit them. See, I still remember your birthday. I lowered my eyes, remembered last year's birthday. My dad invited Ethan home for dinner, he didn't come. Because Mandy updated a photo of being sick with fever on moments. And the year before, our first anniversary together. On my birthday, Ethan's gift was a Dior lipstick. The shade and brand were Mandy's usual. Too many disappointments in the past 3 years, so this occasional handout, he actually thought was a reward. I sighed, really a bit tired. Ethan, we broke up. I reminded him for the 3rd time. Ethan's hand stiffened in the air, with inexplicable stubbornness. I said, I don't agree. If it's because of Mandy, she and I already broke up, if because of the tickets, I burned them all yesterday. And 3 years ago, it was me who carried your mom to the hospital. Clara, you said you'd never break up with me. If you can't find a reason that satisfies me, I'll never agree. Then I'll give you a reason. I pulled him into the still-set morning hall, pointed at the portrait on the altar, loudly declared, Ethan, my dad died, but you were in H province with Mandy, didn't even attend the funeral. Is this breakup reason enough? Ethan's eyes, at this moment, completely reddened. In Ethan's astonishment, I led him into the house. He followed behind, footsteps very light, as if afraid to disturb something. In the center of the living room, Father's portrait was placed squarely, as gentle and kind as before. But his life was forever frozen on the day Ethan went to see Mandy. Ethan's steps stopped, I could feel his gaze frozen on the portrait, then slowly shifting to the elegiac couplets beside, his breath hitched for a moment. Then his voice dryly said, Why didn't you tell me? I didn't answer immediately, remembering I hadn't offered incense to Father today. I took 3 new sticks from the side, bowed to Father's portrait, and inserted them into the censer. My dad, my voice was very calm, even surprising myself, passed last Tuesday, just finished the first 7 days today. Ethan's face instantly turned pale. He opened his mouth, as if something choked his throat, after a long while squeezed out, last Tuesday. Yes, the day you and Mandy were watching a movie in H province. I was very calm, as if narrating something completely unrelated to me. How didn't I tell you? Ethan. The night my dad breathed his last, I still used that straightforward tone. I was crying in the hospital corridor, called you countless times, but all I heard was your impatience and absent-mindedness, and asking Mandy if she wanted popcorn. After all, she's your first love. My dad is just someone unrelated to you. I don't blame you anymore, we've broken up, can you stop pestering me? After hearing me say this, Ethan's lips lost color. He looked at me, eyes with some doubt, some unwillingness. That day he was accompanying Mandy, yes, at the time Mandy was in a bad mood due to work issues, insisted he accompany her to watch a movie to relax. Their breakup was not amicable, he admitted he still cared about Mandy, so when I called that day, he didn't pay attention, but he really didn't receive any messages about my father's death. I didn't know, he murmured, voice full of regret and helplessness, I really didn't know it was this, the phone was too noisy then, I didn't hear clearly, I thought it was nothing big, sorry, Clara, this is my fault, I didn't hear clearly on the phone, I interrupted him, smiled sarcastically, then after? Ethan, when my dad was in the hospital morgue waiting for arrangements, I messaged you, asking if you could come help, I couldn't hold on alone, you didn't reply. Later when the cremation time was set, I told you again. That morning, watching other deceased's families in groups, supporting each other, I held my dad's portrait, standing in the cold wind, you still no news. During the funeral, my moments, friends' condolences, you didn't know any? Can you stop pretending? I listed one by one, unhurriedly. These things seemed unbearable at the time, but now saying them, only numb statements remain. No, listen to my explanation, I really. Ethan urgently stepped forward, reached out, seeming to grab my arm. I was very busy those days, Mandy her emotions were unstable, I was always with her, phone off and on silent, I really didn't intentionally ignore your messages. Moments I might have scrolled past, didn't notice. His explanation was pale and disorganized. But to me, it sounded so cruel, I'm really tired. Don't want to dwell on his relationship with Mandy, don't care why he didn't come, anyway it's past. This person and I have no relation anymore. Ethan, my voice was light but clear, leave. Before he could react, I forcefully closed the door, outside instantly quiet. Ethan didn't leave immediately, he stood outside for a long time, until early next morning drove away. I knew he would go figure out the information gap between us. Or some misunderstandings, some puzzles. These would be his nights, his torment. Unrelated to me. After leaving my house, Ethan went to a friend's bar. He looked cold overall, out of place with the bar's atmosphere. Mandy saw him, eyes lit up, immediately carried a glass to greet him, voice sickly sweet, Ethan, you're back? Where did you go? Everyone waited half a day. Ethan didn't even look at her, walked straight past, like through an insignificant air. Mandy's smile froze on her face, but she didn't say more. "One thing, ask you guys." Ethan's voice was low, almost inaudible in the noisy music, but they quieted down. He asked, "Clara's dad's death, do you all know?" The booth suddenly quieted. The first to speak was the bar owner, Jack. He was surprised Ethan would ask this. "You didn't know?" "It was last week." "Oh right, at that time you were here." Jack suddenly paused, glanced at Mandy beside, awkwardly shut up. Leo continued, "Those funeral days, we all went, Clara alone, in black clothes, so thin, standing there, people coming and going, she busy bowing, thanking, face pale as paper, eyes swollen, but not a tear dropped in public, watching made hearts wrench. We wanted to help, she just shook head, said it's fine." Ryan sighed, then said, "A couple days ago, I thought to send her some food, knocked half a day before door opened, room no lights, she shrunk in sofa corner, holding an old frame, eyes empty. I thought then, if Ethan was there it'd be good, who knew you didn't know this?" They spoke one after another, all about my state then. Those moments I thought I had well, toughed through, were seen by friends, remembered, becoming needles piercing Ethan now. Ethan didn't speak, just listened. His Adam's apple rolled violently, like swallowing something extremely bitter. When speaking again, voice terribly hoarse, "I really didn't know, she said called me many times, sent many texts, but I received none." He paused long. "I thought she was just like before, throwing a little tantrum." Saying this, even he dazed. So in his heart, my accumulated disappointments, final collapse, were just throwing a little tantrum. At this moment, Mandy's glass suddenly paw dropped to the ground, her face pale, eyes evasive, mouth panicky explaining, "Sorry, hand slipped, didn't hold steady." Ethan's gaze lingered on her wine-stained hand for a moment, said nothing. Instead turned to Jack, "You free lately?" Jack pushed his glasses, "Yes, Ethan, what's up?" "Help check my phone." Ethan took out his phone from pocket, placed on table. "I want to know, during this over a week business trip to H province, why my phone was dead quiet, none of what Clara said I received." Jack picked up the phone, fiddled, "Okay, I'll check carefully back home, if installed something dirty, or settings mistakenly changed." Ethan mmm'd, said no more. Mandy lifted head, looked at Ethan. "Ethan, you went to find Clara just now? You argued?" Ethan glanced at her, that glance no warmth. "Not arguing. We broke up." This sentence like a small bomb. Not only Mandy, friend stunned too. But soon, Mandy's shock replaced by excitement. She tentatively asked Ethan, "You broke up with her?" "Really?" "Ethan, then can we?" She didn't finish, but the meaning couldn't be clearer. All eyes on Ethan, waiting his reaction. Ethan seemed stunned by Mandy's direct and eager question. Then, as Mandy's smile grew, Ethan suddenly shook head, said, "No." He said only one word. Mandy's smile disappeared. "Why?" Mandy's voice started trembling, eyes rimmed red almost instantly. "We separated unavoidably back then, now I'm back, you're single too, why can't we start over? You clearly still like me." "No, why?" Ethan interrupted her, suddenly stood up, left the bar. Ignoring Mandy behind, red-eyed, clenching fists. Ethan disappeared for several days. I still received no messages from him. Heard he was still having people check the phone issue, but I wasn't very concerned. I quit my job, packed all things, decided to leave this city. At company handling resignation, HR colleague regretfully asked why leaving. I just smiled, said tired, want to rest. Packing my desk, I took out the bits and pieces from drawer, thermos Ethan gave me, stub from our first date movie, writing faded, and a box of unfinished candy he brought back from a trip. I packed them into a cardboard box, sealed with my 5 years memories here. Back home, I started packing luggage. Lived here many years, now leaving, but found things surprisingly many. Each with memories. Wall photo of family of 3, now only me left. Photo from last spring outing with Ethan, seems like yesterday. I took it down, fingers brushed glass surface, then carefully wrapped, put in box bottom. Closet still had his few shirts, he occasionally stayed over. I hesitated, didn't take them, just neatly folded, placed by bed. Seeing things reminds a person, I don't want his shadow everywhere in my new southern life. Most important, the 2 ebony boxes on bookshelf top. One dad's, one mom's. Their ashes quietly lying inside, as if never left me. Parents often said before, when retired, go south, find a small town, rent a small house with yard, grow flowers and grass, sunbathe, live slow life. They didn't wait for that day. I want to see for them. This northern city, too much wind and rain, memories too cold, I can't hold on a bit. The day leaving, sky gray, I called a car, moved the few luggage up, 2 ebony boxes tightly hugged in my arms. Road to airport long, I watched outside window rapidly receding streets and buildings, bidding final farewell to this city I lived in for over 20 years. Waiting hall, people coming going, broadcast playing flight info. I found a window seat, sat down, watching planes on apron take off and land. Just as broadcast announced my flight boarding, I heard a familiar voice anxiously calling my name behind. I turned, saw Ethan running toward me. His hair messy, forehead sweaty, panting, obviously hurried. He grabbed my arm. Clara, don't go, I beg you. I quietly looked at him, waited for him to catch breath, then broke free. These days I had people check the phone, he explained incoherently. I thought phone had virus, causing no messages received. I found the best hacker I could, checked days, found nothing. Believe me, I really didn't know about Uncle. If I knew, I'd definitely be by your side. His eyes full of bloodshot, expression real pain and panic. If before, I'd probably soften, believe his flawed yet seemingly reasonable explanation. But now, my heart only a piece of cold clarity. I quietly looked at him, with a calm tone unfamiliar even to me, said, maybe another explanation. He stunned, what? Did Mandy touch your phone? This name like lightning struck him. He almost immediately shook head, denied, impossible. How could Mandy do that? She's not that kind of person. His reaction, like countless times before, was subconscious protection of that name. But this time, after rebuttal blurted, his face expression stiffened. His eyes drifted, seeming uncontrollably recalling something. I saw through his instant waver and disbelief. The flawless white moonlight in his heart seemed to crack a fine seam. Enough. This is enough. I tugged my mouth corners, probably wanting a smile, but ultimately only a cold arc. Then took out phone, showed Ethan one by one what Mandy sent me back then. Valentine's Day, Mandy sent me 999 roses, that was Ethan's gift to her. Christmas Eve, Ethan said business trip, actually accompanied Mandy to Disney for fireworks. And our dating anniversary date, hands clasped, couple rings, etc. etc. I waited for him to finish looking, said nothing more, turned, pulled my carry-on suitcase, hugged the ebony boxes tightly, walked toward boarding gate. Wait. Listen to me. He shouted behind, voice with panicked retention. I didn't look back. Ethan still behind, quietly watching my back. But I was about to start my own brand new life. Above the clouds, sunlight poured unobstructed, somewhat glaring. I closed eyes, felt the slight vibration of the plane. Dad, Mom, the South should be very warm, right? I moved to a small southern city to settle. Here pace very slow, many rainy days, air always floating with moist grass and wood scent. I rented an old house with small yard in West City, taught art at a nearby middle school. Days simple and free. Occasionally, think of past, Ethan, Mandy, those tangled entanglements and midnight tears. But those scenes only faint shadows left. I think, this is good. Probably half a year after coming here, one evening, college friend Ivy video called. We chatted recent situations. She suddenly paused, looked at me, said, Clara, do you know Ethan had an accident? I was peeling an orange, fingers stopped. Don't know. What happened? My voice very calm. Ivy sighed, slowly told on the screen. She said, not long after I left, Ethan somehow suddenly went to find Mandy. They argued fiercely. Ethan questioned if she touched his phone, deleted messages. Mandy initially denied, tone aggressive, countered why he suspected. Later Ethan took out things. Past moments Mandy posted, those seemingly unintentional but actually piercing me words. And some screenshots of her chats with him, those ambiguous, with coquetry and dependence words, timing's clever, always when he and I had small conflicts or coldness. Ivy said, Ethan laid these out one by one, asked Mandy if intentional. Mandy's face paled at once. She probably didn't expect Ethan to notice, and save them all. She stood there, half a day no words, fingers clenched tight. Ethan looked at her, voice tired, with disappointment. Mandy, I always thought you were a simple girl needing care, why did you become like this? This sentence like piercing the last paper. Mandy suddenly collapsed. She cried loudly, voice sharp. Why did I become like this? Ethan, you ask me? Why not ask yourself? She cried and shouted, said all his fault for always giving her hope, always when she wanted to let go, be good to her, listen to her complaints, accompany eat, appear when she needed. Said his thoughtfulness and care, those ambiguous gentleness, made her always feel possible. She said she originally tried to move forward, it was him repeatedly making her turn back, sink deeper. You indecisive, hesitant, can't let go of her, can't drop my dependence on you, you enjoy being needed by two people, right? Mandy's voice hoarse, watching me anxious for you, watching me upset because of her, isn't there a bit of smugness in your heart? Ethan, you deserve it, deserve now empty on both sides. Last sentence roared, she raised hand, slapped Ethan hard. Then pulled door, rushed out, never looked back. Ethan just stood there, face burning pain, that night didn't go home, went to usual bar, drank cup after cup. He wanted to call me, fingers rubbed screen long, ultimately didn't press dial. Leaving bar, already very late, he drunk, dazed, hit by speeding car, whole person flew out. Ivy lowered voice, car accident quite serious, right leg comminuted fracture, surgery several times, may limp walking later. She silent a while, sent a photo. I opened. Hospital ward, Ethan lying on white sheets, asleep. He thinned a lot, cheeks sunken, chin with blue stubble, brow slightly furrowed even in sleep. Bedside table nothing, empty. Clara, Ivy's voice pulled me back, he says wants to see you. I looked at Ivy's hesitant expression, suddenly understood her intent. I lifted head, smiled at screen, that smile faint, also calm. I said, forget it, I'm not familiar with him. Ivy stunned, didn't continue persuading. My path already turned to a direction completely different from Ethan's. I don't hate anymore, but don't want to turn back. Just like this, good. Later, I heard Mandy also went abroad. Perhaps she finally saw Ethan's true nature, felt he not good match, no longer obsessed. I lived alone in South, after a few years also started dating. Boyfriend like me likes painting, with him, always endless topics, his eyes and heart only me, I feel very happy, also particularly free. Ethan still looking for me everywhere, I deleted his contacts, blacklisted all accounts, he changed phones, alt accounts to contact, made me annoyed. Later, don't know where he inquired my address, actually traveled far, found my place. The day he arrived was my birthday, after dinner with boyfriend at restaurant, I held a bouquet of roses, and a cake, arm in arm home with him. Passing home door flower bed, peripheral vision glimpsed a familiar person also carrying cake, waiting there for me. But I avoided his ingratiating gaze, rejected his probing look. Left without care. Ethan stood downstairs, watching boyfriend light candles for me, watching me hands together, eyes closed making wish. Perhaps discovered my dimples filled with happiness he hadn't seen for long. He finally gave up, left dejected. 3 years in love, such an ending, pretty good.